Hello, and welcome to our nervous system animation project.
Sensory receptors start the signaling of the nervous system. The cell body is where the nucleus is stored and is connected to the axon. The axon of the neuron is used to transfer signals between the neuron by attaching to the dendrites of adjacent neurons and forming synaptic terminals where the signal can be transferred. Neuron signaling is caused by changes in ion concentration of sodium and potassium across the membrane of dendrites and axons. This charge difference is a source of potential energy and is called membrane potential. When there is no stimulus, the neuron is at its resting potential, where there is more potassium inside and more sodium outside of the cell. This is completed through gated sodium ion channels, potassium ion channels, and sodium-potassium pumps. Potassium is favored to be inside the cell to cancel the negative charge of the organelles of a cell. The membrane potential during signaling changes greatly over time, which is called an action potential. It can be broken down into 5 phases. In the first phase, called the resting phase, the sodium and potassium channels are closed and resting potential is maintained. In the second phase, called depolarization, a stimulus opens up some sodium channels. If depolarization reaches the threshold, an action potential is triggered. In the third phase, called the rising phase, most of the sodium channels open up, and the sodium influx makes the inside of the membrane very positive. In the fourth phase, called the falling phase, most of the sodium channels close and most of the potassium channels open up to make the cell negative again. And finally, in the fifth phase, called undershoot, sodium channels close, but some potassium channels are left open, causing the negative undershoot below the resting potential. The action potential moves along the axon by creating depolarized areas that spread to adjacent regions of the axon, initiating the action potential. Repolarization occurs in the wake of the depolarization. Once the signal reaches the synaptic terminal, the depolarization-repolarization wave is converted into a chemical messenger called neurotransmitter. Once the calcium ion channel receives an electrical signal or an external stimulus, it signals for the synaptic vesicle to fuse with the presynaptic membrane, releasing the chemical messengers into cells surrounding the synapse. If the message continues, the neurotransmitters will bind to the ligand-gated ion channels to recreate another action potential in the postsynaptic membrane. The nervous system is susceptible to countless toxins that inhibit signaling throughout the body. Nifedipine, a calcium channel blocker, decreases the release of aldosterone, which relieves hypertension and chest pains. By stopping the calcium channel from signaling for the release of the neurotransmitter from a synaptic vesicle, it prevents the regulation of potassium and sodium levels within the kidney, leading to a lowering of blood pressure. However, an inadequate use of nifedipine may result in cardiovascular disease or a lack of blood within crucial organs.